No need.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we'll move on. Look, if you are having something to eat, continue to do so. But we'll have to push on. And as I said, if you miss something, it is going to be recorded, so you're not going to lose out. I'd like to welcome our next speakers. They come from Glennallen School in Glen Waverley in Melbourne. I have Eva Chan. We have Vivian Burns, thank you, and Erin Isley, is that her? Erin Isley and Paulina Malik. So the next 90 minutes they're going to do their thing and cover various aspects of the curriculum and therapy services with girls with Rett syndrome. The school itself has been involved with Rett syndrome girls for quite a few years actually. At one point I think going back there was actually 15 students with Rett syndrome at that school. I think that number's probably dropped a bit, has dropped since then. And what they've done over time is that they've come into contact with the diversity that exists in the syndrome. So they probably had to move the goalposts at times with what was needed for that particular child, given how she was faring. So I'd love you to welcome the crew from Glennallen School. Thank you very much, girls.
Thanks, Bill, and thank you everyone for being here. It's been great to hear all the speakers this morning, and a lot of that is relevant to what we're doing at Glennallen School. So we're just going to present what we do at Glennallen School, particularly with girls with Rett syndrome. We have 8 girls with Rett syndrome at the moment, and they are within our school population, but we do of course have things that we do specifically for those girls, knowing their needs. So we'll give you an overview of our school and some of the programs, one of which is intensive interaction, which a number of our Rett girls are involved with. We'll talk about communication systems at Glennallen and how all of our students access the curriculum at Glennallen. The hand function and computer and other device access methods that we use with the girls, the maintenance of their physical skills, and at the end, if we can fit it in, we'll have a little bit about transition to adult services for the girls. Glennallen is a specialist school in the eastern suburbs in Glen Waverley, and students come to our school to access the curriculum in an adapted form as it is in regular schools, and so we're going to illustrate to you how we do this. So it's a school for students with physical disabilities and or health impairments, and it's in 3 areas. It has a primary school for students from 4.8 years up to 12 years. The secondary school is for students from 12 to 16 years, and then they move into the transition school for the last 2 years of their school life. We have 145 or near their students at the moment. Approximately 60% of our students have cerebral palsy, and there's various other conditions that the students have, and we have our 8 girls with Rett syndrome at the moment. The curriculum is based on the Oswell's curriculum, which is the curriculum used in regular schools, including the levels A to D, which are the levels underneath the foundation level, before foundation level, which is prep level. The aim is to develop the individual abilities of each of our students, and that continues throughout their school life, throughout the three areas of the school as they go through. Let's go on. Sorry. Okay. So the classes at Glennallen School have approximately 6 students in them. There's a class teacher for each class and a therapy team that spends some time within that class across the week, and the speech pathologist, the occupational therapist and the physiotherapist and the class teacher meet together regularly. They're involved in programs together, and they, as a team, work to formulate goals for the students and the best programs that they can offer. There's a range of other staff involved in programs. There's specialist teachers in other areas. There's a music therapist. There are nurses at the school, and there are numerous program assistants who help in the class programs, and the DSWs, the disability support workers. And it's a feature of our school that everyone works together as a team. The transfer of skills between the professionals is quite amazing. It doesn't matter if the physio's not there in a physio program, the teacher and the program assistants can continue with all of the activities that would be done when the physio is there as well. Likewise, the speech program goes throughout the week. In every session of the week, we are using communication. It certainly doesn't happen just when the speechy comes in. The speechy can set up students with their communication devices and their switches. The speechy can help students with their physical needs. The occupational therapist can help, can use the pod book with the students, and the physio can also use the pod book with the students. So everyone works together to provide the best program that they can for the students. Each student has an individual learning plan with their specific goals that for in each of the subject areas or the areas that we work in. So there are goals for each, and it's their individual learning plan, and the programs are designed to achieve those goals with the students. We're all from my S16 class team, but we'll also make mention of some of the other girls with Rett syndrome in our school. Right, okay. We can skip over that one. So our 8 girls with Rett syndrome are Bella, Eliza, Lily, Bethany, Paige, Samantha and Jade. And I must make mention of the enthusiasm with which all of their parents gave permission for us to use photos and videos of them and to use their own names. They were all thrilled that their girls would be in our presentation today. Just a bit of background about these girls. They're all non-verbal. They all have mobility issues. All of them use a wheelchair for any distance. Some of them are able to walk with assistance, just at the assistance of a helper for short distances around the school, but they all certainly have a wheelchair. Their cognitive level for all of these girls is below foundation level, which is prep level, and there's various levels of ability within that. I'm lucky enough to have some really great communicators in my class. So with our 8 girls with Rett syndrome, there's at least 1 in each area of the school. There are 2 in our primary school. There are 5 students in the senior school at the moment, and there's 1 in the transition school. 4 of those students are in intensive interaction programs, and 4 of them are in programs where we're focusing on intentional and formal use of communication, which takes the form of pod books and communication devices and various other things that we're always developing. Now, Pauline is going to talk more about intensive interaction and the communication for these girls in our school.
Hi, I'm Paulina. I'm one of the speech pathologists at Glennallen School. So I think Sally Ann made mention of intensive interaction, and intensive interaction is an approach used in 3 classes at Glennallen, so 1 in primary, 1 in senior and 1 in transition, and the 4 girls pictured are in those classes. It's not our focus to discuss this, but we thought we'd make mention of it, and Louise, the teacher in one of those classes, is here and she'll tell me off if I say anything wrong. So what is intensive interaction for those who haven't heard of it or are unfamiliar? It's a way to communicate and build meaningful, equal relationships with the students, in this case, some of our girls with Rett syndrome. And in these 3 classes that use intensive interaction, it forms the focus of all teaching. It's not used in isolation, but it's just forms a focus. So I think I've said it's for students who might have no obvious or formal communication, but they have seemingly random movements, vocalizations and facial expressions, and I'll show some pictures and talk that through a bit in a second. So its purpose is to help develop sociability, because we know a lot of our girls show greater interest and preference for social stimuli like other people. So it helps to or it aims to include or build upon that desire and ability to be with others. It builds on basic communication skills like turn taking, joint attention, emotional engagement, there's that word again, engagement, and it develops an understanding of social cause and effect. So the students learn what they bring to the interaction is meaningful. So I think I have some pictures in the next slide that sort of try and guide what I'm saying. So this is sort of what it might look like. It involves a safe, relaxed environment, and the adult goes into the student's world and they both have fun. You follow their leads, follow their lead by utilising their sounds and their movements and their preferences. And you're using their behaviours, so might be their predominant clapping or tapping or something, so that they will recognise it as their own, which might attract their attention, intrigue them and motivate them to communicate with you, which then opens the door to put in other things, AAC and that sort of thing, which I will discuss too. So here are some photos of Eva, just showing some things with some clapping and games up the top and vocalising and enjoying that being close with a person. I think parents often talk about their daughters with Rett syndrome, and a lot of you will probably agree that your daughters are interested and enjoy being with other people, and they might show that by watching them smiling, laughing, and that is exactly what intensive interaction is about. And Eva, who's pictured, has shown that greater desire and ability to be with other people through her time in intensive interaction or in a class that had that focus. And I didn't have her a few years ago, but I think she was quite resistive to being close to people, having others touch her, or maintaining that sort of interest in a person, and she's come a long way. So I will now outline some of the communication systems that have been mentioned in passing and in detail by the girls specifically at Glennallen with Rett syndrome. So Vivian and I will later sort of elaborate, and I'll mention how these systems are used actively within the classroom to access class programs. So first and foremost, Glennallen is a communication accessible school. We foster communication, again, for anyone, anywhere, anytime, which means it has to be autonomous. They have to say what they want, when they want, to who they want. It needs to be accessible. Those systems, so the pod book or a device, needs to be available at all times. Something needs to be available. And we support good habits by training our communication partners. There's a lot of people at the school. There's, all of this team, the therapy team and the class teacher. There's aides, there's volunteers coming through and through. So there's a lot of people you have to try get on board and understand how to use a system. So we support good habits with all communication partners, stressing that you respond to initiations, you give time, you provide opportunities, all of that. So this has sort of been touched, but these are just sort of some of the things we obviously factor in or take in consideration when providing and implementing an AAC system with girls with Rett syndrome. So taking into account that difficulty or dyspraxia of getting thought to movement, which might make it difficult, for some communication systems, and keeping that in mind. Keeping in mind those movement stereotypes to perform and act, which might be related to communication. Trying to feed back what you see that they're doing. Presuming competence. So I think it's sort of been touched on, looking for and responding to any subtle communicative signals that the student might use, and working towards clearer and more reliable signals over time. And above all else, I think I'll say this like 10 times, but wait. Our girls with Rett syndrome, as you know, all know, they're juggling and coordinating a lot of things. So we need to give them that time and not reboot the system, and give them the time. So I've got a little communication summary of sorts. Vivian mentioned that all our girls at Glennallen are non-verbal, and these are just some of the systems that are had expressively by the girls. And sort of I tried to run around. I don't have all the girls with Rett syndrome on my caseload, so I asked some of the other speeches what's going on with the other girls. So I'll focus and go through some of these items and probably brush on some things because they've been spoken about. I think the last three, the communication passbook, personal communication dictionary, and leisure pack, they're sort of more, not AA systems specifically, but aids used by unfamiliar communication partners to facilitate that understanding. And above all else, none of this is used in isolation. Not one student only has one thing. We're constantly having that multimodal approach, and alternating according to the context. So we've long known that girls with Rett syndrome often have that motivation for food and music. So often introducing choice making with objects in that scenario throughout class programs. So meal times can be a good way to introduce it. We have computer programs where students might pick a music program or a book that they want to read, and they might be given 3 to 4 options with that something different, or none of these at the end. So yeah, we incorporate that constantly throughout the day, just as we see fit. So I think I saw Louise on her wheelchair in the video before. Louise had one of these yes/no strips underneath, and a lot of our girls with Rett, I think 7 or all of them, have a yes/no strip that they utilise to say, or are supported to learn a yes/no. And I've sort of said there that yes/no questions are not all equals, and I think someone said this before, but some of the yes/no questions that were pointed or put up there were accept, reject, and I think that's the first type of yes/no question that you have to make sure you're asking the girls with Rett syndrome, so they have to understand that yes means accept and no means reject, and avoiding others until they understand that. So by that I mean, do you want a banana? Yes, they understand that. When they say yes, that's what that means, before moving on to, do you like bananas? Because that's another step up. That's an affirm, deny type of yes/no question. So again, remembering though, nothing is used in isolation. So we have pod communication books, which have been mentioned extensively. So it's a comprehensive, multi-level, multi-page communication book for communication all the time. It's portable, so it's one of our 9-cell pods with a strap, so it goes everywhere with the student. And pods can come in different formats. I have some 9-cell pods up there, and I think that's Bella up there using her pod book with Vivian. And 4 of our girls with Rett syndrome have a 9-cell pod book that they use expressively. They access using eye gaze and looking at the one they want, with Bella and Eliza, who are in S16. Sorry if I mention these names offhandedly, but Bella and Eliza are 2 of the girls with Rett syndrome who are in our team, who have 9-cell pod communication books. So these books are used expressively and receptively. So like Louise May, I think, said, it's used modelled all the time in the class. So every class at Glennallen has a pod book within the classroom, and that's used to support language. And like Louise May said, if you want someone to learn a language in this system, in this case a symbol system, you have to immerse and you have to value the system, and they have to see you using it so that they can see what's the point of it, what's the purpose, what does it achieve. And I think it was last week, Vivian and I walked into the room, grabbed the pod book, and I said, more to say, I'm telling you something, it's going to happen Tuesday, I'm not going to be here. And she grabbed it back from me and she said, more to say, question, why? And we're going this back and forth aggressively to each other. And Eliza actually was just like ping pong. She was watching us using our pod books to say this, and she was just flipping and laughing and smiling. And that's how, that modelling is so important. So I think it was touched on before as well, using it for different communicative functions, not just choice making, letting them comment, request, answer questions, express feelings, all that. In S16, Bella and Eliza have pod books, and we'll later show some videos of Eliza using her pod book when Vivian and I speak about accessing the curriculum. So pod books are also used for context beyond learning time. So on excursions, there are some pictures of us out at a bowling alley. We're asking questions about colours, I think, in that one, and we, get them to say whatever they want. Sometimes whether they say what they think about it, what they feel. I think in the top one that was on an excursion with Eliza, and the bus was having a few issues and it was quite hot. And I think Eliza was laughing, and one of the aides took out her communication book, said, I think you're telling me something. I think Eliza she's smiling, but she went to, I don't like it. I can't remember which one, but she said bored or tired. And she'd sort of been waiting for 20 minutes to get on the bus because there were a few issues, and I thought that is just a perfect example of autonomous communication. She was smiling, but she said something negative, so you can't always take that smile. Just some more, always assume that the student has more to say. I've had examples, I've walked into a class and a student's been vocalising out sort of upset or aggressive, and I've taken their pod book and said, you look like you have more to say, you're telling me something. In one instance, or in a couple instances, one girl, Eva, I've taken out her book and she's gone to outside activities garden. She was looking out in the garden through the window, and I said, oh, you're looking in the garden, and as soon as we got to that page, she stopped vocalising. She was engaged with me, socialising with me, and I sort of said, oh, it's raining, we can't go in the garden, sorry. But just that, always assume they have something to say. And like people have said, having that repetition, it's not going to happen overnight. You need to keep repeating. And having that wait time is very important. Thought I'd just show, they've been mentioned, but just a few of our girls have step-by-steps, and just talking about those are used to involve or try and include students in the class programs in functional activities. So sharing news back and forth, running class errands. Sometimes a girl might be in a physio program walking, she might go to a class to get the role for someone else or pass on a message, so activating their switches in a sort of functional way. Having meaningful messages during school events like school parties and discos, and game days such as Yoo-hoo, or Yoo-hoo, Yay, and all those sorts of things. And above all else, always responding to what is said and valuing that input. So 2 of our girls have M3s, so Eliza and Bella, who are again in S16, and they have a 4 to 9 cell page set. So it's the same as a step-by-step, there's different options available, and we support that functional use within the classroom. So again, sharing news, and as well as during class programs, and responding to what is said. If something is obscure to the situation, try and relate it to the situation, or ask or verbally reference your confusion. Don't just ignore it thinking it's not related to this. She said box and there's no boxes around. An example of this was Eliza, I think earlier this year, she was sharing her news. She shared her news, she finished, and another student used their communication book to say, she didn't like Eliza's news. Eliza had a bit of a disgusted face, but we moved on, and someone else started sharing their news, and I think within a couple of minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, from Eliza from a communication device calls out, cow. And the adults in the room were a bit confused. They thought she was speaking about the adults, but she confirmed she was speaking about Jen. Which I thought was quite funny. Now, I'll just brush over this, but a lot of our students also have communication passports. We make them portable as like a A5 laminated bound resource. It's simple and practical and gives that information to unfamiliar communication partners, about their likes, dislikes, people in their life. And that's the index page from ours. We've just colour coded and put that together. They can be very helpful. I've walked into a room with students that aren't on my caseload. I'm meal assisting them, or I'm in that class randomly for the day, and I'll look at that for some information to guide my interactions with that person, with that student. Got some examples. That's just a few pages from Isabella's communication passport, so the first 3. And then on the next page, I've just got 3 different ones from Eva's communication passport. So you can see they're simple, there's visuals. Eva likes the Wiggles and Play School, so there's that sort of quick information. And it's all, again, laminated and put on the back of wheelchairs, so it's always accessible for those girls with wheelchairs. There's also leisure packs, which are a variation of some things. So it might be a portable document of how a student might prefer their time. So it might be activities, more visually activities like feather boas and mirrors, or touch activities about fans or brushes, smells or sounds, specifically what music or musical instruments. And what this document outlines, I'll show a visual next because I know this is just information, but it specifies liked and non-liked items. It shows a photo, so a simple visual of the girl participating in activity and a description of how they like to utilise it. So I'll show in the next one. So this is Samantha's work in progress leisure pack that hopefully she'll take on with her. So there's a column, it says the activity, it says how she uses it, and there's a photo of just, I think there's some things with foot spas, and she does not like, don't think you can see that photo, but she doesn't like having her hair brushed. Then I think someone said personal communication dictionary is just a way of recording and sharing information with largely unfamiliar people so that there's a consistency. So it outlines a signal that a student might produce and how you might respond to that signal. So you support a consistency. So what, for example, I think that's Samantha's again, there might be one that says grinding my teeth, and she might often do that the team has come to find she often does that when she's bored. And when you change an activity or an item, or she moves on, does something else, that grinding stops. So there's that sort of information laid out in basic form. Vivian now will come up and discuss accessing the curriculum using all these things and show some lovely videos.
Thanks, Paulina. Now, I'm sure that there's a number of people here who don't really know what we do at school, so I'm going to illustrate a week in S16, but we all know that girls with Rett syndrome have a lot going on. There's lots of things they're juggling, there's stereotypical movements and all sorts of other things. So we are providing the ways and means that we can so that they can access the curriculum in overcoming or reducing the things that get in their way. I'll first speak about student groupings at Glennallen. We group students according to their cognitive, communicative, physical needs and abilities, so that we have like students together, so that programs can address the maximum aims for each of the students because they have like needs. Their preferred learning style, their behavioural needs and their age also come into it. But the students don't necessarily all stay together at the same age. We have, I think, 50 students approximately in the senior school, and they have an age range of 4 years. Well, in that age range, there may be students in the same class who are 4 years apart in age, but to group them according to their abilities within that 4 years is much more important than to do with their age. So all the girls with Rett syndrome are in with other students with other conditions according to their needs. So I have the 3 girls with Rett syndrome in my class this year. And when we started preparing this presentation early this term, my 3 girls with Rett syndrome were all in hospital, and so 2 of them are still away from school at the moment, but the lovely Eliza has come back to school, and so she has been filmed and photographed mercilessly for the last 2 weeks or so. This is our timetable, the weekly timetable, and we have English lessons, we have integrated studies lessons, we have specialist subjects, we have ICT, literacy again, art, all those things, and those lessons for us, our English lessons, are addressing the students' literacy and communication needs. And something like integrated studies, which includes humanities, science, health and design, that sort of gives us a different subject context in which to develop things that are important for our girls, which are communication and literacy and their access to computers, etc. So it's all encompassing. Everything has got the communication, the literacy, the physical needs and the access needs all built into all of those lessons. And of course, I'd just like to emphasise again that communication happens all day, every day. In a day, a school day, we do the daily timetable to set the scene for the day. In the next slide, you'll see the days of the week up there, and we have a little routine we go through. And of course, I get out the pod book and I tell them what we're doing. So this sets the scene for the day. We go through the day's activities, and with the photo with the girls' names up on the board, sometimes we do a sign-in, and they each come out to the board and they have to find their name, so that's word recognition. And then we press the wonderfully magic interactive whiteboard and they get a photo of themselves up there. So that's their little reward for finding their name. News from home happens each day. Some days we can devote more time to that than others, and the girls are set up with their communication devices. Both Bella and Eliza use 2-switch scanning on their M3s, and that of course is a very motivating activity because their parents' voice is on their M3, and also it's all about them, and they all love to tell each other about themselves and what they've been doing. Another example of Eliza's sense of humour, or things that go on in our room, is one day after sharing news, one of Eliza's friends said she was commenting on a friend's news. She chose Eliza and she said she didn't like Eliza's news. So, yeah. Oh, no, you didn't. You said the cow. I'm saying the mean. There's a different one. Sorry. Yes. Eliza likes to have her say. She's quite assertive. With her pod book, we asked for a reply to what Jennifer had said about Eliza's news, and Eliza went more to say, "I don't like it mean." So she's not afraid to say what she thinks. And there have been times when Eliza has sat with her M3, and she's usually the first to tell her news because she's pretty good on her switches. And then we've moved on to the other students, and Eliza has called out, "I'm still here," using her M3. So she's a very clever girl, and we devote quite a long time to weekend news on Monday mornings, and there's lots of that interaction, students commenting on others' news, asking a question, whatever. And in that session, it's me, the teacher, and one program assistant, an aide, so we don't need the speechy there with us. We're very good.
Because I've taught you so well.
Oh, my speechy's taught me so well, but I've been around a lot longer than she has. So we'll just play a little bit of this video, and sorry about me up there, but anyway, this is our timetable. We hope. Uh-oh. Well, I could recite it. I have more to say. I'm asking a question. It's a what question. Now I'm going to categories. I need days and times. Today. What day is it today? Oh, Eliza, you're looking at me. You'd like to tell me what day it is today. Let me get your pod book out. So, do I go through the whole thing again?
I'll get literacy ready.
You'll get literacy ready. Okay. So I've got more to say. I hope you've got more to say. I hope you're telling me something. It's about now. Days and times. Days of the week. What day is it today, Eliza? Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or Friday? If she's feeling cooperative, she will go straight to the day. If she's feeling a bit cheeky, she might choose something else. But Eliza is really fairly reliable. And Bella would do the same thing with her 9-cell book in my class for the days of the week. And then we press the selected day and we get a little song for each different day of the week. There's another student in my class who particularly likes choosing the wrong day, because when you press the wrong day, the computer says, no, it is not Tuesday, try again. So anyway, that was me. That's exactly what I said on the video. The specialist subjects that we have are swimming. The pool is hydrotherapy temperature, and once again the girls do a lot of water familiarisation or being comfortable in water. It's a good opportunity for them to stretch out, hopefully their arms and their legs. We do some work in the deep end of the pool where the student will have a flotation aid, a ring, something, and some of them even have weights on their legs to pull their legs down straight. But we do try to get their arms a bit straighter in the pool because it's nice and warm and they can relax. We have some very, very clever girls in our art class and a very clever art teacher. Eliza down the bottom is sitting, she has her arm wraps on to keep her arms down, and they're underneath her art smock, and they're all taped up so that they don't get paint on everything. She's holding, the art teacher places in her hand, which has a little bit of voluntary movement there. She places the paintbrush, and the paintbrush actually has a bit of feather taped to the bristles, and Eliza is able to just move that paintbrush backwards and forwards to move the paint on the canvas, and she's very, very, very proud of the paintings that she does. And there's Bella having lots of fun with a rag wrapped around her hand, and so the rag will be dipped in paint, and then Bella can just move her hand and that rag around and make her lovely picture in that way. The students also go to library. They can often in their pod books, the girls will choose what subject, what of book they want from the library, and then we'll go and find books on that topic in the shelves, and then they can choose the book to bring home. And in music, lots and lots of lovely interactive things for them to do in music. And we also have equipment where the girls just have to make a slight movement, and that movement will be picked up on with a sound beam or something, and they make lovely music. And they'll make CDs of music they've made, and some music videos sometimes featuring themselves, and there's usually a guest appearance by the teacher who doesn't realise she's being filmed. When we have integrated studies, as I said, it's another context in which to develop their communication skills. Earlier this year we did My Feelings at School, and the girls had to choose something about school from their pod book that they wanted to talk about. I would have expected the girls to choose swimming or art or something that they really like, but Eliza went to pack up in her pod book. So with a combination of words that she gave me from her pod book and a bit of an interpretation by me and confirmation with a yes or no, she said she likes to pack her bag and come to school. So I thought that was pretty good. And we did, one topic we did this year was change. And so we used change to talk about the changes in the girls over their lives, and we had photos from home of them when they were younger, and then some photos from school in their later years. These are the early years of my 3 girls with Rett syndrome. And then we looked at different aspects of it. What is different from when I was a baby? Except that it says when I as a baby. It's supposed to be was. Bella, I'm more tired than when I was a baby. That's an interesting one. Eliza, I liked to dress up when I was younger. So they can say whatever they like. That's that errorless communication. They can say what they want and what's the same. Eliza, poor Eliza, me going to hospital is the same. And Bella, my face looked the same, and she's right about that. And Lily, my other student, me liking my photos is the same. Just interesting that Lily used a strip book to say like to that when we were talking about the photos. So that was interpreted as her liking her photos is the same. We have a big emphasis on literacy throughout the school. We practice the 4 blocks approach to literacy, and so I'll just do a quick illustration of each of those 4 aspects of literacy. With writing, we are giving the girls exposure to letters of the alphabet, and it's another way of using their pod books and communicating. For the writing sessions, the student will usually select a photo of themselves from a collection of photos that we have, and there's something that's happened at school over that week, and then they will choose, girls with the 9-cell pod books have alphabet pages in there, and we'll go to the alphabet pages and they'll select whatever letters they want. It's like young children being allowed to experiment with letters. We're giving them an opportunity to select letters. So we're talking about the photo. It may be a photo of bowling, or it may be a photo. Bella wrote about going to the butterfly house at the zoo, and she went through and picked some letters, and then also on the letter chart is an option for a space. So Bella's written 3 words there, and she told us that she was saying, in her pod book, she told us later that she was saying the butterfly house was hot, and they're the letters that she's selected. And we could say to her, in some instances, we pick out some letters. Oh, look, that's you. Even though she hasn't got a B there, an example would be, you have a B, butterfly starts with B, and you have 3 words. And in some instances we would say, I like the way you've done that, but this is the way that I would write it. And once again, like modelling to young children. We do, working with words, we do 2 letters of the week, and once again, it's another opportunity to use their pod books, and we go looking in pod books for words to start with those letters. The student will take the communication partner to a page in their pod book where they'd like to go looking for letters that may start with T. So then the communication partner would see if there's any words starting with T and say, oh look, there's a word starting with T in here. Which one do you think it is? And you would probably read those words out to the student, and they are given the opportunity to recognise which one of those words starts with that letter. There's other ways of emphasising the letters of the week, perhaps during physio sessions, if some of the girls will go walking in their walkers, so they might need to look as you're going, and the person walking with them will be talking about the things along the way. They might find things that start with those particular letters, or there might be cards planted about the place. Let's see if we can find those cards that have got those words starting with the letters of the week. We do self-selected reading, and the students may have an adult reading to them, or they may be set up with their switches and a computer, and if they're set up like that, then they can actually turn the pages of the book and have it read to them while they turn those pages independently. So that's an activity that they can do independently. We have a session in one of our sessions. We have 3 adults in the room for that particular session, and the girls get to choose. If they're quick, they get to choose first who they want for their helper. And there's questions after the stories, as in, what did you think of the book, or what was your favourite part? So they'll give us words in their pod book, and then we do a bit of interpretation to make that into a sentence about the story. We do shared reading. Our girls aren't quite up to guided reading, so it's shared but sort of guided reading. So the story is read usually to the class, and a purpose is set at the start of that. We set the scene. We say, I want you to tell me there's a few different sort of questions that we ask, which are comment, ask a question, response questions, which is the sort of thing that you do with young children. So we have 5 different types of questions. One is where they'll need to complete a line from the story. They might need to recall information from the story. Open-ended questions that say, tell me about this picture. WH questions, who, what, when or where, something about the story, and also relating the story to the student's experience. And as I said, they're all things that you do with young children when you're reading to them. We now have a video. It's quite a long video, but it shows Eliza having a story read to her, and she is incredibly engaged, and she is like all the very best Rett syndrome girls. She is very, very engaged with her eyes. You can see her looking at the book, looking at Paulina, who's reading the story, looking occasionally at me, and really, really enjoying herself and really focused. So I hope you enjoy that video.
I want to do an activity. I want, turn the page, book story. I want something to do with the book story. I want to read a book, and I'm wondering what book should we read, Eliza? So I have Cornelius P. Mudd. Are you ready for school? Looks like it's a pig who's up to no good. Good looking at the next book is Edward's First Day at School. So they're both about school. But having a look at the one you want, then looking back at me. Oh, Cornelius P. Mudd. Are you ready for school? Good choice, Eliza. I have more to say. Going to ask you a question. So what question? Go back to one. I'm asking you what? More to say. Like it. I'm asking what? Turn the page. What is your favourite part of the book? So when we finish, I'm going to ask, what is your favourite part? Good looking at favourite, yes. Okay. There's a pig in a bed not wanting to get out. Cornelius P. Mudd, are you ready for school? By Barney Salzberg. Cornelius P. Mudd, do you know what time it is? It's a bit like you this morning, Eliza. Yes. Are you up? Yes. It's not really out of the bed and ready to go to Eliza. He's swinging from some balloons. Have you made your bed? Yes. I think he's made a mess of it, Eliza. It's made of robots. Are your clothes on? Yes. His clothes are on his bed, Eliza. They're not on him. Have you packed your school bag? Yes. He's packed it with toys, Eliza. A clown and a ball. You don't take that stuff to school. Have you got your lunch? Yes. And he's got some lovely ice cream to eat, Eliza. Don't think we've ever had that for lunch either. Are you ready for school? No! You does not want to go to school, Eliza. You've got up, made your bed, put on your clothes, had your breakfast, packed your school bag and your lunch. Have you forgotten something? Yes. Oh, I wonder what he's forgotten. What does he still have to do, Eliza? Aww, a kiss. Mary's getting a kiss from his mum before school. Cornelius Peamud, now are you ready for school? Yes. He's combing his hair. There's his mum at the house and she's saying, have a good day. And he's getting onto the bus. Just like you did this morning. The bus says, clown school. And he certainly was a bit of a clown, Eliza. Finished the story and I had more to say. Asking you a question, Eliza. I was asking, what? Go back. More to say. Like it. You had a good laugh, but what? Turn the page. What was your favourite part of the book, Eliza? I'm going to go to categories for you. What was your favourite part of the book? Looking over at days and times. Yesterday, and looking back at me, I'm wondering if you had that sort of morning yesterday, Eliza. Because I know you got up a bit late today and things are a bit funny. Did you have the same sort of morning yesterday? Eliza, did you have a weird morning getting ready for school yesterday? Yes. Oh no. Yes, I'm looking at me and Vivian. I think you would have had a bit of a weird morning.
Sorry about the messy classroom. One half was tidy and the other half was very, very, very messy, and it's all my fault. Now Erin's going to talk about occupational therapy at Glennallen. Sorry, she might be fast.
Okay, so occupational therapy happens during sessions at school. Okay, so within the school setting, OT brings to the team an understanding of promoting independence and life skills. So we understand that independent participation in all activities is really hard for girls with Rett syndrome, and so independent living skills might not be the main focus, but they can always participate in whatever way they can. So that might be using switches to play with switch toys or to access ICT, and we'll help to facilitate this. We also look at the student, the environment and the task, and what adaptations can be made to facilitate participation. Access to the curriculum is obviously a main focus for OT through computers. We also help with hand function programs, so looking at management of the upper limb, such as stretching to maintain current range of movement, splinting to either maximise current hand skills or to prevent contractures, and we monitor skin breakdown. OTs at Glennallen are also able to make some splints, such as elbow splints, which you've seen Eliza wearing on her elbows as she's got some elbow contractures, so just making sure they don't get any bigger and become formed up here. We also address some sensory needs through sensory motor programs or sensory activities and stories. And we also look at equipment needs throughout the school, so switches and mounting systems. At home, OTs are also able to prescribe equipment for showers, bathrooms, toilet chairs, hoists, slings, bathroom modifications, ramps and wheelchair accessible vehicles. So, that's okay. So the main aim of the hand function programs is to prevent contractions from forming in elbows, wrists or fingers, because contractions do impact upon the ability for carers and helpers to dress, clean, positioning, and obviously with contractions there's also an increased risk of skin breakdown. And depending on the severity and the placement of skin breakdown and pressure ulcers, it can take months to heal, so it's best to avoid them if possible. So our hand function programs often have a passive range of stretches and also coactive participation in activities, so it might be either cutting or gluing, and this coactive participation assists with body awareness and brings awareness to the girl of what she's helping to do and achieve in a task. So OTs at Glennallen also have the capacity to make splints and arm wraps for students, and they're only ever really used to optimise the girls' potential for participation, and we're always monitoring how the girls are tolerating them when they're only worn for activities where it's needed. So that might be, arm wraps to help to break hand stereotypical movements, to press a switch or to use eye gaze or whatever. Okay, so access to the curriculum. So some of the main reasons for switching at Glennallen School are for communicating. So whether that's with a single level communicator like your step-by-step or your communication device like a Dynavox. Reading electronic books, so either PowerPoint made ones from Tar Heel Reader, or Clicker 6 customised grids and iPad apps. Clicker 6 grids can also be utilised as an alternative pencil writing, so when Vivian was talking about Bella making a sentence with different letters, you can also set up girls with their switches, and they can also independently go through and pick any letters that they want. Switches also have the potential to be used as an environmental control unit when they're linked to a power box. So appliances can become switch accessible, like fans, or if you're making a cake in the kitchen, you can make your hand mixer into a switch accessible piece of equipment, and also there's multi-sensory pieces of equipment. So at Glennallen we also have an active lunchtime program in which once a week OTs are involved in going out to the playground, and we bring out lots of different switch accessible tablets, iPads and toys, and we try and rope students in and make it more fun, so they can use an accessible YouTube, or they can play games on the Help Kids Learn website, read books or play with switch accessible iPad apps and switch toys. So to use switches for ICT, you need to make sure that you've got an interface, so that acts as your messenger between the switch and the computer. There are different ones out there. You've also got to make sure you've got switch accessible programs. So at Glennallen we use a lot of Clicker 6 because it's a fully switch accessible program that we can adapt to the purpose, so whether it's a writing purpose or a music purpose or a game purpose. And there are also lots of different switches out there. At Glennallen we mainly use jelly bean switches and buddy switches, and they're colourful. They have a physical mechanism, so when the girls are pressing them either with their hands or their heads, you get tactile feedback and a bit of an auditory click when it's used. And we also do have some eye gaze hardware and software at Glennallen, but it's still pretty new and we're learning how to use it. To use switches with an iPad, you need to iPads can be used for a few different purposes, and you need to consider what the reason you're using it is for. So you might use an iPad with your stereotypical hand movements for a girl if they're wanting to explore some of the sensory apps that are there. So they might just use direct touch and just whatever movements they've got for some of the really nice sensory apps. But if you're wanting to use it for a more meaningful purpose, like playing a game or reading a book, then you'll need to make sure that you have some switches and a compatible switch interface to make it work. So, So some of the equipment that's needed to use switches and the different things are here on the slide. So there are different mounting systems, and so these can be for a communication device or for an iPad or for mounting switches onto wheelchairs. So you'll see in the middle photo we've got Lily, and there's a blue arm coming out of the chair. She's leaning away from it, but that blue part there is called lockline, and we use that. It's a modular hose system, and we can attach it to chairs or wheelchairs to different lengths. And we attach with cable ties for the right purpose. And so we use lockline to attach switches for girls who are using head switches but they don't have a multi-level communication device. So Eliza is on the left and she's got her head switches mounted with a Monty mounting system because she has a communication device. Lily doesn't. She's still learning her head switches, so we've got the blue lock line in place. Arm wraps and grass bars, as I said before, these items can provide a really practical and effective way to decrease or eliminate stereotypical hand movements and increase purposeful hand use by breaking these patterns. The arm wrap or forearm splint blocks elbow flexion or bending at the elbow, and the grass bar is something to hold on to and is a stabiliser. But arm wraps and forearm splints are not necessary for all girls with Rett syndrome, and each syndrome is always carefully assessed and considered, and arm wraps and forearm splints are used in conjunction with discussions with parents. We also use wheelchair trays because they're really good for positioning switches if you've got a hand switch user. Okay, so OT assessment intervention. So this is a process that includes collaborating with your speech pathologist and teacher, and each girl with Rett syndrome has her own set of skills and abilities and interests, and so our aim is to tap into them and extend their skill base. So we look at and assess the student, her environment and equipment possibilities and how they all interrelate. So it's a really dynamic process and we like to include the whole team in it. So when looking at the student, we look at the physical abilities that they've got, their cognition and the purpose for ICT, whether it is just for using a switch toy or a multisensory purpose, or if it is for a communication device, what current skills they've got and what they may have tried in the past, their motivation and interests. We like to try and make it fun, and also what new goals or skill progressions we're wanting to make. Look at the environment, so what's needed for the specific task. So does it need to be a classroom chair or the wheelchair? Does she need a desk or a tray? And what's the best height for the screen or the table? And then equipment, the types of switches, mounting systems if one's even required, and then if an arm wrap or grass bar is needed. So as each girl does have her own, is different, has her own set of skills. Each girl uses their switches and ICT in different ways and for different purposes. So you'll see Paige in the very far right. She's sitting in a leaf chair in our multi-sensory room, and she's just playing with a switch vibrating toy. So she doesn't need to wear an arm wrap or a grasp or anything, because it's just a leisure option for her there. So that's just a quick slide of the stepping stones to switch access, which is what we follow when teaching how to switch to the girls. It's from Linda Burkhart, so if you want more information on that, you can go to her website. And so this is Paige. She's a single switch user, she's left-hand dominant, and she's part of our intensive interaction program, and her main uses for switches are for leisure, so if you're using the computer for simple cause and effect games or music, and for sharing her news on her step-by-step. So I don't have any video of Paige, so I do have this picture showing her setup. So in this picture she's using the Clicker 6 program with a grid made to have 4 choices, and it's got 4 different songs from the movie Frozen. Yes, a favourite. And so she's using this grid to work on consistency with her cause and effect skills and pressing the switch. So her hand there with the purple padding on it, that's the hand she uses to switch with. She's broken her wrist at that stage, but anyway. So the program scans through the 4 different options, and when Paige presses her switch, it'll select whichever one the cursor's on, and it'll play a musical reward. The next one is Eva, so she's a 10-year-old. She's a right-hand dominant girl with Rett syndrome. She's a 2-switch user, and she uses hers for leisure and for learning games. Go to the next slide. So she uses a grasp bar and an arm wrap on her left hand just to break up those stereotypical hand movements. She's got her 2 switches, her red and her blue. She's got a little block switch mount, which was made by school, and she obviously needs the Crick box, which is an interface, and the Clicker 6 programs. So with one hand, she presses it with her fingers. The red switch means that it moves from cell to cell, and the blue switch chooses it. And the switches are set up to try and minimise unintentional pressing of both the switches. And the grasp bar and arm wrap, oh no, she just has a grasp bar, helps to break the motor loop. Yeah, and there's a video minus the sound of her doing it. Yep. Oh. So in this video you actually see, well, you can kind of see, the program wasn't working too well, so she was moving and she was pressing her blue switch, wanting to listen to the music, but it kept dropping out and coming back, so she moved around the grids to try again, and then eventually it works for her. Yeah, big Chris Brown fan. And then we've got Eliza. So she uses 2 head switches, and she uses her switches for communication, reading books and playing games. And all of these reasons, there is a bigger cognitive element involved, and she's quite proficient with her switch use. Next slide. So Eliza used to use her hands for switching, and she had varying results with that. She began trialling head switches back in 2013, and her ability to independently use them significantly increased. So Glennallen began to explore the use of head switches for girls with Rett syndrome after seeing Linda Burkhart speak at a conference back in 2012. And Linda had the idea that girls who do have these overriding stereotypical hand movements may find it impossible to ever break that motor loop cycle and intentionally use their hands for activities like switching. And so some girls have had greater success using head movements to activate switches, and the position of the switches often follows the visual yes-no strips that Paulina showed earlier. So the moving switch was the red colour is the same as the red face for no, as it's similar to a no in its function. No, you don't want this one. No, you don't want that one. So it moves along. And the choosing switch is yes, because you do want that option. We do have a video of Eliza using her switches with her device. It's gone.
I've got some news to share. Good morning, everybody. People are here outside. Mum's a bit tired. Things go work.
And so that's Eliza using her switches to share her news. Eye gaze. So Glennallen School does have some eye gaze technology there, but it's still pretty new. We only got it late last year, and obviously has been previously mentioned today. It's a good use of eyes for girls with Rett syndrome. So eye gaze is considered a direct access method as girls use their eyes to make something happen on screen. So it's a bit like a touch screen in that sense. So your eyes are doing the touching but not your fingertips, if you get that analogy. So when you're using a switch, you're pressing a button to correspond to something on screen, whereas eye gaze is looking at the screen and what you're looking at is the option that you're picking. So it can be easier to learn, but it can also be fatiguing to the eyes. So eye gaze can be used for communication devices as well as computer programs. Yep, so we've just got some video clips. So this was Eva's third time trialling eye gaze, and previously combined total of time using eye gaze was probably only 15 minutes. We just set her up this week and she just did it all herself, didn't require any prompting to work out what to do. And the heat generated, so that image on the right, that one there, that's actually the analysis of where her eyes were looking. So the red patches show where she was focusing and looking, and the yellow and green is kind of where her eyes were also flickering around. So she was actually really good at targeting using the eye gaze system.
She was throwing custard pies at our faces.
Yeah.
The other students. Very motivating.
It was. And then we'll skip the last one then. That's it.
Hi everybody, I'm Eva, the physio. So, yeah. No, it doesn't matter. I just use it. Okay. So the role of the physiotherapist working with girls with Rett syndrome. So a big part of our job is to keep an eye on the joints to make sure that the joints are in good condition. So hip displacement, there's this, hang on, try this again. Oops, oh, sorry, wrong thing. Can we go back to that one? Yeah. So when I started working with the girls with Rett syndrome, I think the problems about the hips are not that well known, and I have to try to convince the doctors that they need to have hip x-rays taken. So about the hip joint, the one thing that we should always remember is that sometimes the girls have quite good range of movement in their hips. They can have good hip abduction, moving their hips right out, but the more recent research now shows that the hip displacement is actually quite common in girls with Rett syndrome, meaning, so if you look at the pictures here, so that's a normal hip joint, that's the hip joint, the hip bone is gradually moving out of the joint and finally can become totally dislocated, and that's a hip x-ray showing that. So good range of movement in the hip joints are necessary for standing, walking and sitting. And so now there's research that shows that the children should have regular examinations. So the physios will help to check the hips to make sure that they've got good range for both, important for both standing, walking and sitting. And then the girls should have 12 monthly x-rays and screening to make sure that the hip displacement is not gradually getting worse. Oftentimes hip displacement is also related to development of the scoliosis, so we need to keep an eye on both of these things. And so the x-ray should be taken until the girls get to the age of 18 months so that they've reached skeletal maturity, and surgical intervention is sometimes necessary. So do remember that, because sometimes as physios we ask the parents, have your child had a hip x-ray? They said, yes. But then if we forget to ask further, that hip x-rays might have been taken 2 or 3 years ago, and that's not good enough. It needs to be checked regularly, every yearly. And if the doctors notice in the hip x-ray that the hip joint is slowly moving out, which is called hip dysplasia, then the doctors will order hip x-rays maybe a bit more frequently to keep an eye on those joints. So knee joints in the girls with Rett syndrome, usually knees are nice and straight because they have a little bit of tone in their quadriceps muscles, and we see a number of them who are able to stand, they usually keep their knees quite straight, which is always a good thing for standing and for walking. But there are some girls who are not able to stand or walk, and they are wheelchair users. And for these girls, if they still have a lot of tone in their quadricep muscles, meaning that their feet tends to slip forwards on the foot plates, we need to keep an eye on that, because if the knees stiffen up too much in this position, then it can become tricky for the children to sit with their feet down on the foot plates. And as you move them around, if their feet is always sticking in front of the wheelchair, that can cause problems, especially when they get older, because the patellar tendon can tighten up and the patella can be pulled up in the knee joint, and that could cause some pain. And so for those girls, it's important to make sure that their feet are, we sometimes use different things on the wheelchairs to help keep the feet on the foot plates. And ankle straps might be needed. So ankle joints, the one thing that we really need to keep an eye on is to make sure that the ankle doesn't roll into this position, which we call a varus position. And so it's the foot rolling inwards, and the heel then rolls this way. And if it gets progressively worse, then it is very difficult for the children to walk on feet like this, because then you are very unstable, because your whole body weight is sort of tending to fall outside your foot when you're trying to put weight on it. And so for girls who develop these various positions in their ankles, we often need to use AFOs to control the varus, and some children sometimes need surgery to correct that. And then monitoring the spine, the scoliosis, I note on the program that Dr. Michael Johnson is coming to talk about scoliosis tomorrow, so I won't say too much about that. Just mainly, of course, we know that if the upper body, the trunk, keeps leaning over to one side, it can cause problems for sitting, walking, and also for breathing difficulties. And sometimes the pelvis, obliquity, meaning that it tilts up higher on one side and lower on the other side. So on the lower side, you've got more pressure, and as they get older, then it can cause problems with pressure sores. And so, so that needs to be managed. And some girls we know have very, very early onset in their scoliosis by 4 years old. And so, again, it's something that needs to be monitored regularly with x-rays 6 to 9 months, or sometimes 12 months, depending on how fast the spinal curve is progressing, and the orthopedic doctors will guide you as to how often that needs to be done. So we have some examples about how we manage the varus position. So this is Samantha, So her problem in her left foot started when she was 8 years old. And so you can see in this left foot, if you notice there, she's already wearing an AFO for her left ankle. And so, so even with wearing the AFO, sometimes the joint will still gradually, little by little, become more of a problem, become more rotated. And so in November 2006, Samantha had a left calf muscle lengthening and also a tibialis posterior lengthening. That's one of the tendons that turn, that are working too strongly and turn the ankle into that varus positions. And so she had that sort of split and transferred so that then it balances out the action of that tendon and it doesn't keep pulling it off to one side. And then, but that was not totally successful. So in November, in 2010, she had further surgery to correct and realign the position of that foot. And then, so that's what physios do. We just keep watching the children, and sometimes we take photos of their joints. And so in 2011, we noticed then her right foot also started becoming tight. And so she began wearing AFO in her right foot. And by November 2013, because the foot was rolling over so much, it means that on the outside of the ankle, even though she's wearing AFO, because the foot keeps turning, it just puts too much pressure on the outside of the foot and ankle, and it becomes too painful, and it was difficult for her to tolerate wearing the AFO, and it became much harder for her to walk. And so, next one, sorry. And then Samantha also developed a spinal scoliosis, and in July 2012, she had the spinal fusion surgery, and then in 2013, she also had more surgery for her hamstring tightness, for her hip abductors, and then also in December 2013, she had the calf lengthening and tendon transfer for the right foot done as well. So it's been a roller coaster journey for Samantha, and obviously for mum and family. So physio role has been, doing rehabilitation after all the surgery, getting her back onto her feet, and I'm really glad to say that now Samantha is, we can still just hold her two hands and assist her to walk. And for children who are able to stand and walk, then daily care does become easier in many ways. Just run through this. Sorry, we're running out of time, so I have to speak quite quickly. Okay, so this is just an example of another girl, Jade. Jade also developed some varus in the left foot, and this is just an example of what physios do. We do stretches and we write up a program so that the program mates in the classroom can follow it. And then, so Jade has been wearing an AFO, so when children need that, then we send a referral to the authorities and they can organise AFOs for the children. And she's been on the waiting list for some tendon release on the left foot. Okay, so a big part of our job is helping children to maintain their walking skills. So I would just like to say, yes, when children are younger, it is relatively easy for an adult to just sort of give them some support and help them to walk. We can show that little bit of video of that's Paige. Yeah, so this is, I can't remember, it would be about 2 years ago, and it is still quite easy to walk with her, just one person holding her with one hand. So as children get older, they get taller, they get bigger, and then it can become harder for us to walk with them. So these videos, maybe I'll just show one of them. Just show the Bella one. Yeah, so this is Isabella, and this is called an easy belt. So what it means, it's got some handles and on the back, and so it means the helper have a really secure grip on her, and then it's safe for her, it's safe for the helper. When we're walking with her, we don't have to worry about her falling over, because if they do a sudden turn or something like that. Next one, please. Okay, so we'll show the first video. So this is a video of Lily walking, just to show you how, no, the other one, sorry. Yeah, so just to show you how as they get taller, it does get tricky. Yeah, because she leans over a bit with her upper body. And then she suddenly changes direction. Yeah, and so we're sort of heading off towards the window. And you can only walk at a fairly slow speed because balance for her is difficult. So we show the next video where we've got her in a walking frame. This walking frame is called a May walk. And you can see how the speed is much faster, and it's a more smooth movement, and it's much easier for the helper to control the direction of where we're going. We can stop that and just go back to the picture, the photo. Yeah, and the photo here just shows you, whoops, keep it doing the wrong. Yeah, that, whoops, yep, this one. So this walking frame has got a bit of a saddle seat, and when she's tired, we can let her sit down and have a little rest, and then stand up. And you don't have to try to, grab another chair, so you can let her sit down wherever you are. Next one, please. Okay, we can show Isabella. Yeah, this one I think is taken this year, and Isabella's quite a big girl, but with this walker, it's got, whoops. No, we're still on the same one, sorry. Yeah, it's not very long. Yeah, but you can see there's also a little bit of a sling there, which is very safe, and even if she's all of a sudden, say if she's got a seizure and she has to stop, we don't have to worry about her falling to the ground. And then also with that walker, we can often get Isabella to walk 20 minutes or sometimes up to half an hour non-stop around the school, and that's the amount of exercise that we want to get the fitness element of it. If we're walking very slowly, then you're maintaining the skill, but you're not getting that fitness element. I guess I might skip the one for little Eva. These just show you that there are different types of walking frames that can be suitable for different children depending on what they do with their bodies. And so there's a lot of equipment available these days that can help. Yeah. Next one. Just keep racing. Okay, all right. So maintaining walking skills, we can get children to do walking on the treadmills. Because we're running out of time, maybe we won't be able to show you all the videos. So at school, we've got a treadmill where we've got some volunteers to build this ramp. And Eva's using a little walker called the Pacer walker, and we just roll the whole walker onto the ramp, and then she can do some walking on the treadmill. Next one, please. And so this is, hang on, can we go back to the Jade one? Yeah. So this is Jade doing some walking on the treadmill. And Jade went through a period when she hated the treadmill, just would not have a bar of it. So we just used the easy belt and got her to do some fast walking laps around the school. But in the last couple of years, she's been brilliant. And she can just do that. And just one person standing next to her, no help whatsoever. Next one, please. And can we show the Bella's video, please? Okay, all right. So I think this one is good to show you because Bella's in a walking sling. She went through a stage where she had quite a bit of seizure activity, and so walking became difficult and a bit dangerous because she might have a seizure and suddenly drop. And so we, in the classrooms, we have hoist tracks around the room, and so we just used a walking sling, and we can just connect her to the hoist straps, and then she can walk around by herself, and she can walk up to her friends and say hello to them. Yeah, and so that's a very, and that the other, this is just a photo showing you one of the girls using the walking sling, but also walking on the treadmill. And again, it just means that it's very safe. We don't have to worry about them having a seizure in the middle of doing that. So unfortunately, we are running out of time, so what do we do? So just mention all the different activities that we do. Bike riding is also where we're at. Okay, so for girls, some girls cannot walk. Standing is important, so again, with all the improvement in technology these days, there's a whole variety of different types of standing frames that can suit the children. And then bikes, again, different styles of bikes. Some of them, like this one here, is very low to the ground and it's very easy to transfer the girls in and out. And so I think lastly, just to mention that for girls who are mainly using wheelchairs, then the wheelchairs also, there's a lot of customization available these days that the physio or the OT can help to prescribe a wheelchair that can be comfortable and also durable for the use of your child and to protect them. For example, recently we had Eliza who had some problems with osteoporosis, and we customized some special protection for her knee with some knee support and also special bracket around her foot plates to protect her feet. And unfortunately, we have to finish now.